Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. Hey.
Just
Hey.
yeah.
Hey.
Hey,
Hey.
hey,
Hey.
hey,
Hey.
hey.
Hey. My name is Hero, bitch.
Wow. You are a feisty one for just getting up in the morning.
Oh yeah.
I will
Yeah.
always, yeah, it's like ding.
Yeah. Totally.
Whereas you see me first thing in the morning, I'm like,
I know you. I know you definitely don't look like a
this is,
rosacata when you wake
no,
up.
I mean, no. What did you say?
You don't look like a rosacata when you wake up
No, I don't look like a glorious glowing rosacado, an avocado rosin when I wake up. It
No.
takes me about an hour.
to ripen.
And Suze is coming on already.
Awesome. Oh my god, look at that
Look at
awesome
that
profile photo. Oh my
gorgeous.
god, gorgeous.
No kidding, right?
Oh my god, look at that hair. I wish I had those hairs. Oh.
Those hairs.
Should don't
Not
have
just
hair
one hair, those
hairs.
hairs.
As
Suze,
RuPaul
you
says.
look.
Hi.
Oh,
Oh,
she looks
I
exactly like her
Suze.
photo. Look at that.
Oh my god. It is so rare for a photograph to represent the actual human. That is so awesome.
And it's funny. That's funny. And she's gone.
Should don't have hair hairs.
There she is. Hi, Suze.
Hi guys, how's
Hello.
it
How are
going?
you?
Good. How are you,
Good.
Suze?
Good. We've started recording already, so I always like to let our guests know so that they just know that this is already recording.
That's good.
And we were just talking about getting up in the morning and how Hero basically can be like this and still have a smile on his face and a swift kick in the pants. And I get up first thing in the morning and my husband does not want to be around me because he knows I'm the grumpiest person in the morning. Like it takes me an hour
And two
at
coffees.
least. And and I'm almost finished this coffee and I'm like, oh my God, I think I need another coffee. I don't know. But anyway, we have Susanna Campos. Now, do you say the S on the last? That's such a stupid question.
Yeah,
I never
yeah.
asked
You
about
like
your
in
last name.
Spanish, you pronounce every single letter.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Well, you do, except for J's are not the way we would say a J.
It's
It'd be
just a different sound.
exactly.
Like Japan would be Japón. So
Yeah.
like an X. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
but we do pronounce every single letter.
Right. Okay, there you go. So,
Yeah.
and for me, now, do you like to go by Suze?
Sure. Yeah,
For
Susan
business
sounds
too?
good. Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. So Suze is the owner of Amor, and Amor is a stunning handmade shoe line from Mexico, actually. So it's all these like artisans that hand make these, like some of them have this intricate beading and just like the most stunning shoes. And there are also shoes that are very practical. So don't just think they're beautiful for events and those kinds of things, but also very practical shoes as well. And Suze, and you got to correct me if I'm wrong, but she imports the shoes to Canada and she works with these people in Mexico that have these just like the most amazing stories to tell. And the whole thing with Suze is creating this storytelling with a product that can be, not only like a work of art that you're wearing essentially, but have a story to it and supporting, these people that are working very hard to be creative and to be artists essentially. And she is a powerhouse of a woman, female entrepreneur, which is really exciting too. And that's my little wee introduction to Suze. And Suze, can you still hear me? Oh, you're muted. That's interesting. Okay, hold on. Suze, wait a second. Now are you unmuted? There you go. Okay, you were muted for some reason. That's interesting.
Yeah, I beat myself, but anyhow, I was just letting you speak anyways. I wasn't talking, so I was like, oh.
No, but then I saw your mouth moving, this beautiful mouth moving, and I'm like, I can't hear you.
No, but you nailed it. Yeah, it's been a bit of a journey, but that's basically what Amor is. And another one important thing to mention is that one of the main motivators is to support fair trade. So we always ensure that the manufacturers that I work with, they're supporting fair trade. So what that means is we pay the artisans what they ask for as opposed to what we offer.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's so important though, because it's that's what happens with production, even if it's a startup or if it's a mass manufacturing company, and then you lose the quality of the heart of the product. It just becomes something that's calculated as opposed to something that's intentional.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true. So Suze and I, just for like another little mini introduction, Suze and I have known each other for, my God, what did we say?
I think it would be somewhere about 8 years.
8 years or so. So the cat's out of the bag. She's actually a very, very good friend, and she is the partner, spouse partner of my husband's, one of his absolute best buds from high school. So we do go back a little bit here with some history. And just really wanted to have her on the show. So this is super exciting.
Yay!
In a whole different capacity. It's very interesting, talking to you about your business in this kind of capacity, but super cool.
No, thank you so much for inviting me, by the way. So I really, feel flattered that you're having me on your show.
Totally. So tell us more about, again, why you wanted to start Amor. What was the intention behind it, and a little bit about how it's been so far.
Yeah. So I feel like there were a few different pieces that inspired the idea of Amor. One of them is, Rachel didn't mention this, but I'm originally from Mexico City.
Yes.
I grew up in one of the largest cities in the world, but grew up in the footwear industry at the same time. So my father had shoe stores, since I remember from before I was born. And then my grandfather was a cobbler. So this is basically a third generation, which also inspired that idea of having people that actually know the industry.
Yeah.
And those products from people that have been in the industry for, 3 generations. And now you imagine these people actually know what a good quality product looks like and the work that it takes to create it, right? And the craftsmanship that goes into it. So that was one thing. Then when I moved to Canada back in 2007, so what happened there is that I started realizing the differences in how the products that were over here were made and the quality of them, and also the prices, right? So what I noticed was that the quality and the materials that were used were not the highest, or not what I was used to seeing. I think when I started looking at it, leather was, the best, or it continues to be really a great material, right? Like it just lasts longer.
Yes.
And then when I noticed the difference in prices, I thought, well, there's an opportunity here. I can probably start something. But this was back in 2007, and I never thought about, starting a business. And then it started evolving in time when I realized, okay, maybe I can start importing these products and actually provide better quality and better prices. And at the same time, I couldn't find any stores that would offer shoes made in Mexico. So everything was either made in China, the majority, or, super expensive, also high quality European brands.
Yes.
So obviously there's, when you start looking at logistics, when you think about importing products from Europe, you have to actually cross an ocean, right? So that becomes more expensive, and obviously, the knowledge and the experience of cobblers in Europe is, it's amazing, right? It's really good. Mexico has really, really good manufacturers and cobblers as well. But then you don't have an ocean that you have to cross. Basically, you can actually ship it in a truck.
So why that I find that very fascinating, because if what you're saying to me sounds like, if it's quote unquote easier to, or maybe even less expensive to import or get things from Mexico, then why aren't more people doing that?
Yeah, good point.
Right? Like, because we're all attached. I mean, with Canada, US, like, why is, I'm not to blame the US because they're in the middle, but I wonder, what do you have an idea of why that is? Yeah.
So when I started doing some research in the market and figuring out, okay, why is it that people or that stores are not carrying these products or importing from Mexico? So I found one store, what they did have was cowboy boots. And that was my initial idea. But that was the only place where I found products from Mexico that, where they were proud about, carrying those products, because they realized it was really good quality. But when I started talking to the owner, she told me, well, one, it's really difficult for me because I don't speak the language. So
Right.
that's a problem. So every time I go, it's, I have to go to these trade shows. So you can't communicate with everyone because not everyone in these trade shows will speak English. And if you speak Spanish, that was a problem. But not only that, I think the biggest problem was the cultural differences and more in business. Just as an example, and really quick, I mean, there's a lot of things like, for example, in Latin America, people feel like it's okay to be 2 or 3 days late with a delivery.
Yep.
So you kind of have to understand that and adapt to that. So you tell them this is the date, so you're like a week before.
Yeah.
And even for myself, I had to learn that the hard way. And I couldn't say that. I had to say, okay, I needed this date, but really I know that I needed like a week or 2 later, because then I didn't want to have any surprises. So if it arrives early, perfect. And if it's not ready on time, then I cannot get mad. I cannot get, become a difficult customer, because that's another cultural difference. And it's like the customer is not always right. So you kind of have to treat them in a different way. So in North America, we used to we're always offered like best customer service, and we're always right as a customer. So what I learned is like, there it's not always the case. So sometimes you kind of have to balance things out. Like, these guys have really good quality, good experience, production, they deliver on time, they know how to export. They have everything, but maybe the customer service is not the best, so I kind of have to adapt to that.
Yeah.
Those little things that you have to understand, plus the language, I think those are the biggest barriers, and that's why people don't deal with Latin American manufacturing much.
That's interesting. Yeah, and of course, and you've got like a leg up in all of that because you were born there, so you know how it works. So that's
well, you would think so, but the thing is, like, I never really had a job in Mexico. I had one job when I was like 17 years old.
Right, because you moved. Right. Okay.
I moved when I was very young. Well, like officially and for good, I moved when I was 21. So I only had one job. I didn't really understand the business culture, so I actually had to learn it too. But the culture itself, I kind of knew it, right? From helping my dad when I was younger.
I was going to say.
It wasn't child abuse.
Not child labor?
You don't look like that at all. No. You don't look like you've been abused at all.
That is too funny.
I think that's one of the main reasons.
Well, Hiiro and I talk about a lot on this show about, this is more of the negative side of things, but generational trauma, but just generational, like in your DNA, in your blood. I mean, it's a part of your family and your family's history. Like you said, the cobbler and being in the shoe business and the industry. So it's kind of just, in a way, there's definitely an innate quality that's in you that maybe you never even knew, and you tap into it. Did you see that?
Hi, Adriana.
Once in a blue moon, right? Once in a blue moon, you'll see my husband just kind of in the screen trying to sneak around our Zoom episodes. That's hilarious.
He should come in more often.
Oh God, Hiiro. Okay, we're gonna stop there. Hiiro's got a little crush on my husband.
He's a handsome guy, so.
One day, well, maybe he'll show his face. But anyway, let's get back to what we were talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that one of the main things is that my parents really believed in the business, because it's always like everybody needs shoes. So there's one thing that people will always be buying is shoes. So it's they call it like a very humble industry, because you don't really have to fight that hard for it. Now, that was back in the day. You have a good location and you sell shoes, you're not guaranteed, but you're most likely going to get enough sales, right?
Right.
You know how to choose your product, and you really have to have a good eye on like what your market is needing or is looking to buy. Yes. But in general, it was like my parents believed that it was a humble industry, so that everybody needed shoes, so everybody would continue to buy shoes.
Yeah.
They knew their seasons, right? When kids started going back to school, they needed more shoes for that specific reason. Mother's Day, Christmas, right? Like they kind of knew their seasons.
Right.
So because they believed in it so much, I believed in it too, right? So I was like, no, like this is a great business.
Yes. And and then you kind of touched on something, just talking about, I was just thinking nowadays, how things are being run. He's leaving. Okay, bye. Nowadays, that practically almost everything is online now. We're heading in that direction just with this global pandemic that we're dealing with. Because I know since the very beginning, you never really wanted, I mean, I'm probably just putting words in your mouth, but you never wanted a brick and mortar location necessarily. Like you always, your idea or platform was always going to be either online or shoe parties, which I remember in the very beginning was like that. But how are you feeling like things are progressing now? Are you feeling worried? Are you, like, as an entrepreneur and a business owner, just with, and also, like, I was just wondering, I'm sorry, Hiiro's just sitting there, like, he's like, just taking it all in. But also, so that's one question I have. And the other one is, when it comes to importing these things, like, how much more difficult is that now with the pandemic?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to shipping products, it's like, I mean, it might take a little bit longer, but that's not the biggest problem.
Have the prices gone up though? Or no? Okay.
Maybe a little bit, but it's not like huge. And because
that's good.
The volume has slowed down a little.
Right.
So we're not shipping a lot. So
okay.
It hasn't made a huge impact. But with the change in what you were mentioning about, like, now everything's online. So a few things happen, and you're right. Like, from the very beginning, the idea or the business model was to never have. First of all, I never want to have a brick and mortar store because I knew how stressful it was to have to pay fees. So I'm like, I'm not going to get into that. So one thing that I think I got right.
I've been there, and with a yoga studio, that can be a whole other episode. But yeah, I get you. I got it.
Yeah. So, I mean, you understand, what, like, knowing that you have to pay a lease every month is very stressful. Starting the business itself is stressful as it is, right? So adding that stress is just, I couldn't imagine it, because especially when it's your first time, I feel like there's a lot of things that you will discover in that journey. There's a lot of things that you didn't even think about that you were going to run into. Like, I never even thought that marketing was going to be such a huge part. Digital marketing was going to be such a huge part of the business.
Right.
Because initially, like you said, what I wanted to do was just have this network or direct sales type of business model where women would have the ability to make a commission and basically start their own business without having to put all the capital in and invest a huge amount of money into products. So the product will be there for them, and they will start selling to their friends and family, kind of like a multi-level marketing. But that was one of the things that I was kind of fighting in the beginning, for people to understand it wasn't that model. It was a sales model. But then I started to get people asking, oh, where's your online store? And it was a constant question. Do you have an online store? I love your shoes. They're so pretty. They're so different. They're unique. But can I just buy them later in your store? And I'm like, well, that's not the business model that I was planning for. But you have to adapt, right, as you go. Yeah. And not having that burden of having to pay a lot of, or have a lot of expenses in your business allows you to adapt in time based on what you see that the market requires.
That's true.
Well, it does, because when it comes to sales channels and stuff, and I work in retail, you've got your brick and mortar, you've got your e-commerce, you've got your wholesale, and then you've got your affiliates, and you've got everything else. So, you can definitely be successful in having all those channels active. But also there's many companies that are strong in just one sales channel, or one or two maybe, right? So that also plays a big part in your planning for your business and your revenue and your capital gain and your return on investment. So that way, when you do set up your revenue streams, okay, if I'm selling footwear, I would say shoes are pretty easy to measure. You know, you won't know until you try them on, but a lot of footwear, you can get a good idea of what it's going to fit like, so you can easily ship it, you know, and then people will do enough through social media and through promotion and through their own word of mouth referral, which is honestly the strongest marketing if you want people to actually retain and then come back to have new products that are purchased from your product line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, and then you're totally right. Like when it comes to channels, that's another thing, right? Because my initial channel was to do it through this gatherings, or I call them boutique nights.
Yep.
But as the market started to ask, an online store, then all of a sudden the channels, you have so many options. You can sell in your online store, redesign your own thing, or you can do direct sales, or sometimes people would be like, I want to come to your location. I'm like, I don't, but I had to adapt the pace so people could come and like try them on once in a while in the beginning. And then all of a sudden you have Amazon and you have Instagram and you have
Facebook.
So there's so many channels. And what happens is, as an entrepreneur, like, or, you know, solopreneur in the beginning, it's really hard to manage all of the channels. So you kind of have to choose one or two.
Right.
Otherwise, it becomes too much to keep track of.
Totally.
So yeah, and then I mean, if you're gonna open up those channels, you also have to be prepared with like good customer service. So it becomes quite complex once you start thinking about what online or e-commerce means.
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I just want to say, because in addition, because I'm just thinking about brands that have grown, that have developed, that have become viral, and that have had to like aggressively meet the needs of their client base that they are probably thrilled to have, but didn't know it's like Vessi footwear is a good example. And you look at like all the stuff they've had to do, and you see their Facebook, you see their Instagram, you see their website, you see their e-commerce, and having like emails sent to you about, oh hey, like you missed something in your inbox, like do you want to,
it's
right?
Exhausting.
Right. So it's exhausting when you have to keep up with that. And so I can imagine that in your situation right now, as you're growing your brand, you know, these are things that might come up, things that might also develop, and things you might pivot depending on where you want to take the growth of your brand and your product.
Yeah. And what happens is the market is not very forgiving. Like, think about it. If you reach out to a brand and say, hey, I'm interested in this, and you don't respond right away, or you take a day to respond, like, you know, they're not interested anymore. They might not, like, they just don't get back to you. You have to keep up with all these channels.
Yep.
It's become overwhelming. But eventually, again, you kind of have to narrow it down. I've been focusing a lot on Instagram. Instagram is, you know, one of those channels that is very, very visual, gives you the ability to tag your products, etc. But at the same time, in order to kind of grow an audience, and you want to do it organically, you have to create content. So that's another part of the business that demands a lot of time, like it's investment of time.
I was going to ask you what platform you find has been working the best for you these days, and you think Instagram is probably one of the better.
Are definitely the best for me.
Sorry, you said Instagram and
email marketing. So
email marketing, okay.
So if you start, like, in the beginning, I started building my email list, you know, from customers, and I had a catalog that I used to print off, and I would upload it onto the site or the website because I didn't have an online store. So I had the catalog there, but people couldn't shop. So the only way for them to look at the products was to actually download.
I remember that.
They had to give me their email address. So I built my email list that way. And I think that's the most important channel you can have, because those are contacts that you own, right? Those are whereas in your social media platforms, you don't, like, they can just shut you down any day because they didn't like something you said, and you lose all your following. So so email I think is one of the like most important ones. Like, I notice a change in traffic in the store when I have email marketing or email campaigns going out. Social media is definitely something that is constantly, you know, attracting new eyes. But, you know, paid ads has to be part of it. And but you have to have a really good website if you want to start paying for ads, because you don't want to be wasting that money. So I've definitely, to be honest, I think with this business, I never thought that I was going to learn so much about digital marketing. But what is so surprising and so, I don't know, what COVID has also brought to our lives now, like any business needs net digital marketing now.
Oh, yeah.
It applies to everybody, right? So
yeah,
if you want people to find out about your brand, you have to be digital, because people are not going out as much, right?
Yeah. And then it's just become like, but with that being said, it's just to get that space online is just so much more competitive now. Yes. As well. So like your pay per clicks, or your, like, I feel like maybe people are having to invest a bit more money now than they did before to get seen. Do you think that's the case as well?
Well, in the beginning of the pandemic, actually, it went down because people were turning off their campaigns. So the cost for advertising on social media was lower. It started to level out, as the pandemic went through, or
right.
But so what happens is, like, because you really niche it down, right? So it's not so much, I find that it's not so much about the cost, but about like being really good at targeting.
Yes.
You know your niche, and you're really good at targeting, and you're a really good copywriter, and you have really good photography or really good video, then you have better results, and obviously your cost goes down. But again, that's another investment, right? You kind of have to either become good at it, or I would say just definitely outsource it. But then you have to learn how to manage people. So
oh yeah.
So everything and every decision comes with like a new skill that you have to either learn or develop. So, but it's great. I mean, it's as you grow, personally and professionally. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And it's not one of the things that, that happened to me in the beginning of the pandemic. I was just so devastated because my pipeline was full with like boutique nights, and so many people were excited about the new collection and wanted to have their parties. And all of a sudden, everything started canceling. I canceled probably about 25 parties.
Oh my gosh.
Those, it hurt, right? Because you put so much time and effort building the collection, booking these parties, recruiting people, and all of a sudden you have to cancel everything. So your efforts just went into the trash can.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, 100%. And I feel like those that have been able to, like yourself, like rise above and are adaptable, are going to thrive through this and past this. And that's, I think, where, the quality, the mental capacity or quality of being adaptable and being strong and rising above the flames. I mean, this is really a huge test for small business owners.
Yeah.
Right? Like either, and we're all taking a big deep breath when I said that, because it has been very devastating for a lot of small business owners, especially those brick and mortar locations. Like it's been absolutely devastating. But for those that are able to rise above and eventually thrive again, it's I think maybe they'll be even more successful than they were before. I mean, I don't know, but it's
not having that burden of having to pay for a brick and mortar, like
yes,
at least
true.
Like, it gives you that flexibility to pivot or to change your business model and adapt. But even with that, like what you're saying is so right. I feel like those that continue to just try to not give up, because it's so easy to just, when they say, you know what, I can't do this anymore.
Exactly.
Or sometimes you just cash flows like don't allow you to continue, so you have to stop it. But I've seen stores that had a brick and mortar. Actually, one store, in Kelowna had a brick and mortar store, and they said, you know what, the pandemic started, we cannot sustain this. Yeah. Let's move on to have only our online store, and they're doing great. So
that's
a matter of, I think, sometimes making the right decision at the right time. For myself, I think that has given me the ability to just chill, not be super stressed, take my time to actually adapt and figured out what's going to work now, because the world has changed in a big way.
Yeah. And being willing to change, because a lot of people, like you said, they might just be like, no, just not going to do it. And it's a whole shift in your perception and your mindset. So it's not easy. Definitely not at all. I just want to go back a little bit to your actual product. And I just think it's so cool that you have, and I've seen some of your videos where you've actually gone to Mexico when it was safe to travel, and you've been there and you've gone and you've seen these artisans making, like you really dive deep into the stories, into the culture, into and I can sense the pride you have, and it's inspiring, and I think it makes me, hopefully others, more excited to buy your product, because we know how excited and how passionate you are, but also, the passion that goes into the hands of these people that are making the product. And it's so cool. So how did you find these people? Like, it's just so fascinating. Like, how do you source out these people?
Yeah.
Your product.
Yeah, good question. So in the beginning, because, I started this business and I talked to my dad about it, and I said, this is what I want to do. And he had been in the business for decades, right? So I kind of knew where to start. So there's like some of the biggest shoe or footwear trade shows in Mexico. One of them is in León, which is known as the shoe capital of the world, believe it or not, because there's so many manufacturers there. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, this show, you could not finish seeing every booth in like the entire 3 days that the shows goes on for.
And what's the city called, you said?
León, but
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
So I started there, and it was really interesting. One of my cousins actually sent me a picture of some shoes, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, look at these shoes! They're handcrafted, and they're artistic." And I looked at them, and I was like, "Oh, they're so beautiful!" So I was like, "I need to find them." So I started looking for them. They were not online. They were not on social media. They were just starting out, and so I went to this trade show, and I knew that somehow I had to find them. So I can't remember even how I found out that they were actually in Guadalajara. So I went to the trade show in Guadalajara in the hope that I would find that manufacturer.
Yeah.
Went there, they weren't there. And they got this little mini booth. It was just like, there was nobody there. It was just kind of like a display in the middle of the trade show.
Oh, wow.
Some business cards. And I'm like, this is the brand that I'm looking for. Last business card, grabbed call the owner, and I say, hey, I'm really interested in looking at your product. And she said, like, yeah, come to my location. And she had her business in own house, basically.
Wow.
And that's how you start. Like, she started by having her business inside her house, but it was a beautiful product. She knew, or she tested a number of different manufacturers to get to the quality that she wanted. And we started a relationship. And then another brand, it was out of León, and it was just basically going through booths and interviewing people. And again, there's different things that I have to consider. One of them, making sure they could handle the exporting process.
Yes.
Because I had a couple of experiences where they just couldn't import it because they either didn't know how to do it, or they were not willing to get into or learning and figuring out how to export it. It's not that difficult if you're not exporting big amounts of product. But if they're not willing to get into that area, then they're just happy with their local market, then you can't force them, right?
Sure.
And like, believe it or not, like, you think like, oh, somebody wants to buy my product from another country, and I'm super excited. Yes, of course, let me figure this out. But not everyone is as eager. It's too much work, right? When you already have a market.
That could be another reason maybe why you don't see as many shoes or any products here that are made in Mexico, maybe.
Yeah, because people are, like to be fair, Mexico's a great country for commerce. Actually, when we go down, my husband always mentions that, oh my God, there's so much commerce everywhere in every corner. So because you have the ability to do more things. It's not as regulated, so you can't sell from your house. Like, you can just shop on a corner, So people are just used to having just a ton of commerce everywhere. So, and I mean, it's a country of 110 million people.
Yeah.
If you compare it, for example, Canada, we're so spread out, and the market is not as big. So why would you, right?
It's true.
Yeah. So
100%.
you're like, okay, maybe getting into the US. So a lot of manufacturers are selling to, California or Florida. So the South states of the United States, but the population, the market is there, right? And the
Of
weather,
course.
there's just so many factors.
Yeah, and they're not much closer to Mexico.
Yeah, but that's how I go about finding them. Just went to these trade shows, a couple times with my dad, and he made a few introductions. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. And, finding my own as well. And you just have to look for them.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Go ahead here. I was like, do you want to question? Your mouth was like partly open.
It was like, no. I was going to say, so with having understanding of the origin of the brand and the ethics behind it and what it's going to right now, where would you like to see the brand develop? Like if you could take a snapshot in even a year from now or a couple years from now, where would you like to see the growth of Amor?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like what I've been lacking and I need to get a better grasp on is understand the influencers, influencer marketing. There's so many influencers out there, but it's great. I mean, they're great. Not everyone is all about posting and having half naked pictures. There's some good influencers out there that like to talk
getting my head because, oh my God, yes.
And they have their own market, and that's okay.
Yeah, true.
But I need to find those influencers that could actually help the brand, because that's the way to grow on social media these days. And I am a strong believer in the fact that the new currency today is your audience. So if you don't grow your audience, you don't start growing your audience today, you're going to be just so behind, right? In 5 years from now.
Right.
So work. And one of the reasons why I'm like, I don't want to give up because there's so much work that goes into putting the word out there and getting that following and getting people to know your brand. So these influencers do a lot of work in growing their following. And if I can find those that can actually help Amor put that word and that message out on behalf of the brand and just communicate all the things that inspire me to create the brand, which is, loving the craftsmanship and loving art and appreciating the tradition behind what you're wearing and having a story to tell when somebody tells you, oh, those are beautiful shoes, or that's a beautiful hat, or I loved your jewelry, where do you get it from? I think, people have to start taking pride in what they wear and leave aside a little bit like, the consumerism part of it, like where it's just like grab more and more and more. I feel like we're getting into a new stage where people are starting to realize less is more.
Yes.
And
so true.
You have to have better quality, just a few things over tons of variety that is just going to go in the garbage every months. Because, I mean, it's not good for Earth, right?
No.
And we're supporting our local producers. We're not supporting local businesses. So there's so many things that actually are a benefit to society and to the environment by just making those conscious decisions. So I think there's influencers out there that can do that for the brand. And I like to be able to find those and make strategic decisions when it comes to investing in those influencers.
Yeah.
Because those are the ones that are going to carry the message. So I do have to become better at that, but that's where I see the brand. I see the brand being one that is carried out by influencers that are actually focused on that message. Less is more, quality, supporting those artisans, because this art that we are portraying on these shoes is just something that they bring from generations ago, right? And you don't want to.
Cool. Yeah.
If we don't support it, it's just gonna die. And it's something so beautiful, and again, I don't think it's so much about being from Mexico myself. Maybe there's a little bit there, but when I talk to the artisans and I talk to the producers as well, and how much they love how the tradition has evolved and how they maintain it. And, these people are still even dressing in their old clothes from, their hometowns. It's just like, oh my gosh, you should maintain this. It doesn't mean you're staying behind, but showcase your art.
Yes.
That history, right? That is so rich. Don't let it die. So again, and then also, supporting for trade, because there's people that actually love and have a passion for this art, and you can support them and provide them with a better lifestyle, better opportunities, right? Like maybe they can send their kids to better schools, or you name it, right? Have a better house, but giving them the opportunity to continue to do what they love while providing their families with a better lifestyle. I think that's another. So anyways, to your question, 5 years from now, that's what I want, someone that helps me carry out that message. But I need to figure out how to find them and how to make strategic decisions when it comes to investing in those influencers.
Absolutely.
This is, I feel like almost, it doesn't have to be necessarily in the fashion industry. This episode is just been so full of some really juicy, for lack of better word, tips, and not even just tips, but just insights, oh my goodness, into entrepreneurialism, small business, just how people are navigating the times right now and what is really important. And I think you really hit the nail on the head about, people are more concerned about the environment these days. They are more passionate, I feel, and more supportive of small business, of quality over quantity, or over those kinds of things. I think it's all those. I mean, you just hit the nail on the head, I think, with all those topics.
I know, and the shopaholic in me is never going to go away. So for those that need someone to buy multiple products of their product line and in one go, you can hit me up, because I will still continue to binge on your product if I love it.
You wear heels, Hiiro? Have you ever worn heels?
Yeah, I have, but
we talked about this before. Sorry,
I've worn heels, but they've been constructed for a men's foot though. So like I haven't actually worn women's heels, even for to try it. Like I haven't done drag or anything like that, but I know that my feet just wouldn't take to it. But I've worn Flubog men's heels. I have a few pairs of John Flubog men's heels that I've worn. So I have one that's cool. 2.5 inches, and I have one that's 4 inches, which I've worn twice.
Wow.
I just wanted to have a pair of men's heels where if I want to put these on, even though now that I've got such a yoga body and my awareness of my body and stuff and how sensitive it is to the slightest thing, I kind of joke, if I put them on and I was to walk in them for half an hour, that my hips would pop out and I would be like an oblong, my hips would just be nope, bye.
We're used to it, and then that's another thing that I've been actually having trouble with, because the fashion industry is totally moving towards just flat shoes, sneakers.
Yeah.
Because the weather doesn't help you, when you want to wear high heels. But the fashion industry is just moving more towards comfortable shoes, and I think high heels are just so beautiful, and they just polish up your whole outfit.
Yes.
It makes you feel taller. It gives you sometimes better posture if actually manage to walk on them.
Yeah.
Having that, or not practicing, but just wearing shoes, high heels on a regular basis, definitely helps you, wear them better. Yeah. But if people don't practice it, it's happened to me where we were traveling for 6 months and I wasn't wearing high heels because we were always exploring and walking. And one day we're out to an event and I wear my high heels and I felt wow, do I know how to walk on high heels anymore?
Yeah.
I can totally see where you're coming from.
Yeah, you just got to work it, honey. You just got to work it, damn.
100%. And then Hiiro, you just said something about, you're well, I don't do drag or anything. Have you had any requests or any, I just feel like your shoes are just, not that they're flashy, they're beautiful, they're gorgeous. But have you had any drag or anyone approach you to,
Yeah, no, I do.
Oh, no, I'm talking to Suze. Sorry.
Oh, Suze, sorry. I got confused.
Sorry,
what?
I was just referring back to what you said, and then yes.
Got it. Okay, yeah. Sorry, Suze. Go ahead.
No worries. No, I do. So I do get requests. They want to wear high heels because they're so artistic, and the colors are so bright, and then they just love them.
That's a perfect influencer for you, for sure. The right drag queen with the right reach.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
That's so true. So again, it's just different things to explore, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But the problem is, I don't know if it's something you guys know already, but when you order shoes as a store, for example, you have to order kind of like sizes, right? So normally the manufacturer will have, their production from size 6 to size 10.
Yep, correct.
But in order to go to size 11, 12, or 13, it just costs so much money because you have to create like a new form for it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wish I could, just actually, I don't have it here. But the form that they use has to be actually, it's like a mold, basically.
Yeah, the last.
That makes sense.
And they're so expensive that in order to make it economical, you have to make so many of them before you can actually make money as a manufacturer.
Right.
So whenever you want a bigger size and you have to go through that entire process, then the cost of that shoe just, goes through the roof. It just becomes really expensive because the manufacturer is going to be like, okay, you're going to have to cover my cost for making the arm and just making one pair.
Right.
So it's almost like custom made.
Yeah, so it would almost have to be like a completely different line, maybe, or different. It would be a whole different.
It would be custom. It would be like bespoke.
Yeah,
the custom made, or like you're saying, Rach, like you have to create or produce, I don't know, 50 pairs for it to be economical and have them sell, right?
Yeah.
So, and I feel really bad that I think that's one of the problems that some people might have when they have a size, they're a size 11 or a size 5 even sometimes, 5.5. They have such a hard time finding shoes, but that's the reason why. And, as much as you want to fill that gap, the market is not big enough.
Yeah.
Although I prefer it because I do get a lot of requests. They are like, oh, do you have size 11? Do you have size 12? Do you have size 5? And I'm like, sorry.
That is, that could be an issue for sure. One of my last maybe questions for you, and it is not really necessarily along the lines of shoes, but how, like, do you miss Mexico?
No.
Not anymore. Like, just the difference between here. I know it's been a number of years, but I was just curious, just culture wise, because but just going back to something you said before, you were talking about how, cool it is. People that you visit, they don't let their history or their culture go. Like, they're really immersed. They you don't want to forget it. You want it to still live and breathe and be there for the generations that are to come. And sometimes I feel like in North America, we don't hold on to those traditions as much.
Yeah, no, that is true. That is true. I think, one of the reasons, and I think we had a discussion before, is that we're such a melting pot, right?
Yes.
So it comes with different cultures, different traditions. So it's not like everybody's the same, everybody kind of practice the same religion or have like a traditional food that you always make in the country. So everybody has their own thing. So there's not such a thing of like, we have very few things like Thanksgiving. Okay, everybody celebrates at the same time. But to be honest, like, that's something I didn't used to like celebrate in Mexico. So that's something I adopted when I moved to Canada.
Right.
And that's one of the things that people have to kind of adopt as they move to Canada. But you're totally right. Like, in Mexico, those traditions are so homogeneous. Like, everybody kind of practices the same. The majority of people are Catholic. The weather is fairly the same across the country.
Yeah.
And I mean, the history there just dates back to, Aztec times. So,
cool. Yeah.
If you learn and know a little bit about the history pre-conquest, it's just so rich, right? And so much to learn, and you start understanding a lot of the things, or a lot of the things that kind of frame not like the today's mentality of people, like, believe it or not, and we talked about it, like those generational traumas, but generational knowledge as well.
Yeah.
Traditions that you pass on generation through generation. That's something that sticks and is really hard to get rid of. Like, and you don't want to get rid of it, right? Like, there's still things that I do that I learned from my mom, and I know my mom learned from her mom, and so on. But those are beautiful things, and they're very family oriented, and that's great. Like, whenever I go, I feel like families get together and they're like, oh, you should come. We're gonna have a family gathering, and that's something that feels really nice. And another thing is, realizing your ability to adapt as well, because the culture is so different here. So I feel like I'm operating one system when I'm here, and when I go down to Mexico, I kind of have to switch my operating system and be like, oh, different culture. I have to interact in different ways, speak a different language, interact with people in a different way, speak in their own mentality, which, you know, it's just different. It's not like worse or better. It's just different.
Yeah, that is a very good point.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, I do miss certain things. You know, that's funny. A friend of mine, we were just down in Mexico in July.
Yes.
And my friend was like, you don't miss Mexico? I'm like, no, not so much. And then she starts bringing out like the tacos and the flautas and all the good food. And I'm like, okay, maybe I do miss it a lot. No, like, I miss this too. And I miss this cheese and I miss the quesadillas.
Yeah.
Maybe I miss a few things. Yeah. But, you know, when you don't see it, like, how does it say?
Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
It's been so awesome getting to know you a little bit. Rachel has been just gagging about you for the last several weeks, and such a good in the queer world, like in the drag race kind of culture, gagging. It's like, oh my god, it's so incredible. Like I just can't even breathe. Like you're gagging. Like, you just want more.
Okay.
Yeah, not like a ball gag. Nothing.
I know, it's like
nothing
gagging.
gross.
Like that doesn't sound okay. I get it.
No, like
worked in my vocabulary.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It was like I'm gagging for more. You know, like oh my god, it's like saying verklempt basically. But yes, I mean, she's said so much incredible things about you and your brand, and it's nice to see you virtually, at least in person, and to learn more about what you're doing, where you're going, what you're inspired by. And one of the things that we love to share with our guests, kind of like a little fun question, is if you were a fruit juice, what would you be and why?
A fruit juice.
First thing that pops into your mind.
Okay, I would be natural, like fresh pressed orange juice.
Ooh, nice. Okay. How come?
Specifically natural. Yeah.
Yeah, well, one is natural. It's so good. Like if it's just freshly pressed and like you just drink it. Like that's how I grew up. You know, you just go to the corner and find a guy that's making juices in the corner. Spread down the oranges and they give it to you, and it's so fresh. And then sometimes it's like, oh, like you want it with a little bit of mandarin, and so how much? And they would just kind of custom make your orange juice to what.
Delicious.
So yeah, that's why. And it will be like my breakfast. So
now I want orange juice. I do have orange juice in the fridge. I'm glad.
I want breakfast.
Have it.
What's that, Rach?
Yeah, I said we know that. Did you just say I want to have breakfast or haven't had breakfast?
I want breakfast.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there you go. Oh, you're hilarious. Well,
I am. Thank you.
Thank you again so much. I'm hoping that this episode will also give people some insight and, like I said before, some tips, some knowledge to assist them during these times. And not only that, but to assist and help their feet. So hopefully, not hopefully, but we will put your website connected to this episode and your Insta handle and all that good stuff. So so
thank you so much, guys, for having me, and for this is a way to support small businesses. So that's one of the things I also like to do, and that we do in the small business community is like the more we are in each other's channels and present each other on our podcast or lives, the more exposure we get, and it's a way to support each other and kind of get out of like that capitalist bubble of only buying from Amazon.
Yeah.
So that
absolutely.
Let's just make the effort and support each other. So I really appreciate you guys are doing this. And I mean, I know you're not doing just with me and with other people. So that's great that you guys are doing this. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for that. And we really wish you the best of luck, and keep in touch with us, and whatever we can do to support you and your brand and your growth of who you are, we are right there with you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. And all the best to your podcast as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Take care. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.